and welcome to another episode of For the Love of Sports. My name is Michael Rasile. This is a show where we get to talk about sports, we get to talk about business, and we get to talk about everything in between. Wherever you're listening, however you're listening, you know exactly what to do. Like and subscribe on YouTube, 5-star review on Spotify, and over on Apple Podcasts. Say something really nice about me and my incredible guest today. I have Tracie Wagman. She is the CEO of ColdVentures. Tracie, how you doing today?
Hello, thank you for having me.
Pleasure is all mine. Excited to get to talk to you about saving lives and making
Yeah.
people just a little chillier than they were before, but in a medical sense. But Tracie, the first question I have for everybody on the
Yeah.
For the Love of Sports podcast is, why do you love sports so much?
I love sports. It's the craziest thing. I love watching people compete at the highest level. I love the strategy, the hard work, the ups and the downs. I don't know. I love it. Like the craziest thing about me is I will watch all the sports and I will comment on all the sports. And I have so many of them, I have no idea what the rules are.
That's awesome.
And it doesn't even matter.
The
And
confidence,
I love it. I love it. I love it.
the confidence to comment on something that you have no idea about. Oh,
I
that is
know.
just,
It's so, well, what do
that
you
is just
mean? Why didn't
beautiful.
you catch that ball?
Yeah.
What's wrong?
My favorite, when you're watching the Olympics is like, yeah, she didn't land that triple backflip. What a loser, right?
Yeah,
It's
like
like,
what
all
the
right,
hell?
dude, like
Yeah,
you're eating popcorn on your couch. Maybe chill out for a second. But no,
I know.
I love competition. So like, there's certain
Mm,
teams that I really hate that I'm not a fan of, but I
right.
really appreciate when they do play at a high level because it's the best
Yeah.
when those teams that I hate are like second best and they
Right.
lose. Like, for example, the Philadelphia Eagles. I am not a fan of
Right.
Philadelphia. I think I've made that known once or twice on this show and really just in my personal life. But when they lose the Super Bowl, there's no bigger high for me. Like watching them
Oh
be
my God.
incredible at their sport and still getting second place, knowing that that whole city, that whole town is just sad. And I get to smile and listen to the Philly sports talk radio and how angry everyone is. That Super Bowl, this
You
last
know,
year was
it's
incredible.
I know people who are in sort of pro sports, and the craziest thing I heard, I guess it's not crazy, but interesting, was that it's not even so much that they want to win, it's that they hate losing.
Absolutely.
And and it's a real nuance, but
Oh yeah.
it really makes a difference. And
And that's
I love sports.
And that just goes back to like competition, right? Like there's like it's
Yeah,
different things that drive different people to get to where they want to. Some people just want to be at the pinnacle and some people just refuse to not be at the top of like, on the podium, right?
right.
So it's like
It's
that
just
kind of
that there's no losing here. Yeah.
exactly. It is that nuance, but I mean like talk about a segue into business, right? Like that like what else is there other than yeah, I mean like in business, like there are those people. Like I've worked for companies that is like,
Mhm.
no, 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 we want to be number one. And I've also worked for companies like we really don't want to lose. So like let's try to be number one as best we can, right? So it's like that really
Right.
interesting dichotomy. And like there is,
Yeah.
as you said, there is nuance to it. I prefer the hey, we want to be number one, right? Like
Yeah.
I prefer that type of I'm more of a positive person. So I prefer that type of
Yeah.
mentality and kind of going at it. Cause when you're on the I don't want to lose, that's
Mhm.
scarcity. That's more things can go wrong because of that
Yeah.
mental
You
thinking,
you
in my
are
opinion.
you're waiting for the wrong, right?
Exactly.
There's
You're acknowledging
playing
it.
to win and there's playing not to lose. And
Yeah,
those are very different things in
totally
business.
agree. Especially in
Yeah.
business. Yeah, I totally agree. So yeah, let's talk about your business a little bit. CEO of ColdVentures. I mean, I could tell the people what you do, but I think it's a lot
Yeah,
better if
no,
you do it. You
yeah.
got the elevator
We
pitch. Let's do
we
it.
we have a product called Cold Vest, and it is a treatment for heat stroke, basically an emergency treatment for heat stroke when ice is not available or cold water immersion is not available. We have a product that doesn't require any ice or any power or electricity. So it's basically an endothermic chemical reaction. And it immediately freezes, and you lay it on a person, and their core body temperature goes down like 5 to 10 degrees in 30 minutes. And
Wow.
30 minutes is the critical amount of time when someone is suffering from heat stroke that you need to get the core body temperature down.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah.
like don't want to be ignorant, but like I remember in school we had those like ice packs that weren't cold and then you
Yeah.
like smash them on the ground and they just like
Yeah.
immediately like that type of chemical reaction, I assume?
No, I would say it's much, much colder than that. Those ice packs
Okay.
are great a lot for, sprains or
Mhm.
pains that you're going through in exercise. This is much more like it's not cold water immersion, but much more like very extreme freezing
Okay, cool.
to bring core body
So
temperature
I
down.
just I just want to clarify. I didn't mean it was that cold, but like that type of
Right.
chemical reaction where it's like it's not cold and then it all of a sudden becomes cold.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
basically
cool.
like that.
Okay, cool, cool,
Yes,
cool. Yeah,
got it.
no, and
You
that
got
makes
it.
sense.
Yeah,
And then your vest though is obviously for a lot of different things. So usually when it comes
yeah,
to a product like this, we're saving lives. 9 times out of 10, it normally is because something happened to you or someone close to you where you're like, you know what would have been nice. So I'm curious,
yeah.
where did the idea for this come from?
Well, funny, this has been around a long time, and it did develop in that way. But we recently, like, it started actually for heart attacks because the body needs to be cold in a heart attack, and then we had customers who started to use it for heat stroke.
Awesome.
Um, and then, I mean, every year is the hottest summer on record, year over year. This
Weird.
past summer was
Huh.
the hottest summer on record,
I wonder why that
and
is.
yeah, and so it's also more prevalent in the vernacular now. And the thing I think about a lot is, imagine as a mother, you send your kid off to play football because that's amazing. They're outside, they're playing, and aren't you great? They're not indoors playing video, and then they die because they no one knows how to treat them because they've overheated. And I can't get my head off that. Like, no one knows what to do. And so for me, it's like this mission of combating death and extreme illness from heat stroke is just like the number one thing I want everybody to know about it.
Absolutely. No, it totally makes sense. I mean, I feel like it's once every 4 or 5 years you hear that unfortunate story, whether it's high school, college, or even professional, right? You hear
Yeah,
about somebody just like, they do those
yeah,
intense workouts in August and, you're down south somewhere where it's 100
yeah.
degrees, 100% humidity. Like that's not really good for your body.
But
And
the
we've
thing is, it's
advanced.
happening
But
everywhere now, not
mhm.
even the South,
Yep,
like
yep, yep.
every summer, every year, and all over the country. So
It is very
yeah,
unfortunate.
it's getting more and more
And
prevalent.
if there's something like this that can save just one life, man, I mean, I think
Yeah.
everyone would agree it's probably worth it at that point. So I am curious.
But we think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, absolutely. And so I'm curious. You said it originally was made for heart attacks, and then
Yeah.
the users started to say like,
Yeah.
"Hey, this." So was that kind? It was like kind of born out of like everyone else being like, "Wait a second, why don't we try this?" Like this wasn't even from the company standpoint.
No, we started as a product for heart attacks in the ER and with doctors, and it really pivoted from our users.
That's pretty
Like,
cool.
"Hey, we've been using it for this." And so we started heavily working towards getting this to athletes and sports teams and a lot of outdoor workers, to be honest.
Yeah.
This year, like, really started to, because it's happening so much, just like you said, on every field. Every August, we're all playing football. Everybody's on the field. And so we're now really targeting athletes, like working with teams and schools
What
and
is
athletic
what
trainers.
is that pivot internally like? It's like at some point, oh, you hear about one person doing it, then you hear about two people doing it, and you're like, all right, guys, we
Yeah.
clearly have something here. Like, at what point do you say, like, okay, we understand this was originally made for something, but clearly there's
Yeah.
a bigger opportunity here? Like, how do you kind of internally, like, say, okay, this is what, give the people what they want, right?
Yeah, I mean, as I started doing research on extreme heat and death from extreme heat and illness from extreme heat, it it was just like, it was just like we couldn't not do it.
That's, yeah.
And that's basically it. Once you start learning about it, you can't stop.
And
This
so
is the way it needs to be.
you started, as you said, you started to try and get this in as
Yeah,
many athletes' hands as possible. I guess,
yeah,
how are you going about getting it in as many hands as possible, right? Because I feel like this is not a product, or maybe please tell me wrong. Like, is this a
yeah.
product I can go out, quote unquote, go to Walmart or Amazon and buy it for myself so I have it in my house? Or is this something like you need a trainer, you need someone who's medically cleared to be able to utilize something like this?
Well, that's actually a really good question.
Thank
So
you.
this is not a traditional medical device. Anyone can use it,
Hmm.
and you can go to our website at coldvest.com and you could buy one for yourself if you wanted. But so again, you don't need much training. It's really simple to use. But it is an FDA class 1 device, which makes it sort of an easier product to use.
Okay.
But we actually are working towards talking to most athletic trainers and everywhere. at school, at middle schools, at high schools, and colleges. And now we've started talking to some of the pro sports teams, that even when they have cold water immersion, this is portable. This doesn't require ice. It can be right at the field if somebody needs it. So that's how I'm really going about talking to athletic trainers, because they really acutely understand the issue. And none of them want any of their students or athletes to go down.
Totally understandable, right? Yeah, again, that's
Yeah.
it's a really easy like, "Hey, you don't want
Yeah.
anyone to get hurt," right? I guess because something like this obviously again has existed but in a separate vein, how easy or how difficult are those conversations? Because I can assume, a trainer, he or she's been doing this for a long time. Oh no, this is what we do, this is our standard operating procedure, these are our protocols. Like, how do you
Yeah.
kind of have the conversation and be like, yeah, but I have something easier, better, more effective for you, just cost a couple bucks? Like, why wouldn't you do something like this?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I don't ever try to compete with ice. Like, if you have cold water immersion, that is the gold standard. And it covers more surface area. It absolutely, if you can get somebody into an ice bucket, you should.
Mhm,
If you can't, and in so many instances you can't, this is what you should be using, so that no one needs to die. Because my death from heat stroke is 100% preventable.
mhm.
No one ever needs to die. If you can treat somebody within 30 minutes, they won't die. So that's the conversation I have. Like, if you can get somebody in ice, you should absolutely, like in an ice bath, you
Mhm.
should
Yeah.
absolutely do it. When you can't, and that's not an option, let me talk to you about this. And, to their credit, athletic trainers are very scientific. They want the data, they want to know how it works. So it's like having a conversation about something where everybody knows there's a problem, and I'm just explaining that there is a different solution should you require
Mhm.
one.
And I
So
feel
it
like
is an interesting,
I
yeah,
feel like every athletic center, right? I think like Division One college, so maybe that's not like the best way to think about it, right? Because as you said, middle
yeah,
schools, high schools, I'm sure not all of them
yeah,
have access. If they do have a bucket, yeah, it has ice in it, but I'm sure it's not out on the field with everybody, right? So like,
right,
yes, if you
yeah,
can get them
yeah,
realistically into an ice bath, as you said, when they need to
yeah,
be, okay, great. But the
yeah.
chances are not all these schools can, and it's gotta be, even if they
No,
could, it's gotta be really difficult to get them there when your product probably just makes it a hell of a lot easier.
I mean, I think so. I don't think that you could have both. There's no
Yeah. Oh,
need to not.
exactly, yeah.
And the other benefit of cold vest is it stays cold for almost an hour, so it can stay on an athlete all the way to the hospital
Mhm,
if they're, so that they don't need to be taken out of the
mhm.
ice bath. So transporting a patient is also really critical. So I mean, I think there's room for everybody to help, keep
Yeah.
these students safe. So we don't, but yeah, I absolutely, like, there's room for all of us.
And so here's actually a question, probably should have started, or this should have been a little earlier in the conversation, but, like, heat stroke, well, like, okay, you get hot, but, like, what is it what are the specific conditions? What makes this person just cross whatever this line is to get to this point? Because I feel like there has to be it almost has to be like a
Yeah.
perfect storm at that point.
It's actually super interesting, and often it doesn't even have to do with the heat. It can often do with exertion.
Okay,
Um,
that makes sense.
and so, and there's a line between heat illness or heat exhaustion and heat stroke. So you're absolutely right. Like, if you're sort of, I'm hot, I really need to sit down. You are probably still okay. Get into the shade, get some water, cool down. Heat stroke is, often people collapse.
Mhm.
They counterintuitively stop sweating,
Mm.
get rashes sometimes, and then they mentally start to kind of act different. And so there are certain things that some patients will do, like beating someone up or like acting kind of bizarre. And if you're not aware, of the symptoms, you think they're just like acting out of character, but it's often a side of heat stroke, because what is happening is your core body, your organs are literally burning inside, and
Alright.
you can't measure it with a typical thermometer. You can only measure it in a different way, and so it's hard to actually measure the temperature. But so your organs are burning inside, and that's kind of what's happening. And again, like I've said this a few times, you do have to act quickly and get their core. And I've heard of patients who get into ice baths and are fighting everybody to get out because they're just,
Mhm.
their brain is burning, so those are the signs. Like, they're very acute, and and it can quickly turn from heat exhaustion to heat
Mhm.
stroke, and then often somebody will just collapse.
Okay. And is there any turning back if there is no medical intervention, a product like yours, an ice bath? Is it like once you cross that line, like good luck, or is there still things that can be done for that person?
I mean, you can, if there's nothing around, you try to get them cool, get them into shade. If you can get somebody into air condition, I mean, you try to do
Mhm.
all the things you can do to someone to cool them down. Um, and as best you can and as fast as you
Mhm.
can.
Makes sense. Good to know.
Yeah.
Look at that
Yeah.
little PSA for everybody. Make sure.
Yeah. I
Giving
mean,
some.
I'm really trying to
Yeah.
be the
Absolutely.
evangelist for please everybody understand. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So with understanding, so you're talking to a lot of athletic directors.
Yeah.
How have those conversations been going? I assume everybody's pretty open to it. Like, what are some successes that you guys have already started to see by getting this into the hands of so many athletes?
Yeah, it's been great. Like, I mean, in parts of Alabama and Birmingham, we're in the middle schools and the high schools
Awesome.
there. We're kind of in colleges across the country. Um, and what's really interesting is what you talked about earlier, like these places who they just don't have access to ice
Mhm.
and they've had no other solution. So it's been great. Like, we're in a way, if we don't hear about it, we know it's great.
Yeah, yeah. No news, good
It's
news. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
that's yeah. Okay, that is fantastic. And like, what I guess, like, has anyone reached out and been like, "Hey, this you saved a life today." Like, what is that like? That aspect of it? As you said, you wanna make sure everyone can survive something that is very survivable,
Yeah.
especially with utilizing a product like yours in Cold Vest. Have you had people reach out and be like, "Holy crap,
I
like,
haven't had that yet.
no?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess, again,
Not
that's a good
yet.
thing, but, like,
Yeah. I feel like
okay,
that's good.
yeah,
Like, for
exactly.
me, no news is good news in
Yes.
that regard.
Absolutely. No, I think that is
Yeah.
fantastic. And so with the change to switching to athletes and trying to
Mhm.
get in front of as many of them, like what are some other avenues that you guys are trying to go down to again just try and get this brand awareness, like anything just to make sure as many athletes know about this because
Yeah.
not only the trainers need to know, right? I think the parents probably want to know about something like this, right? Like this is
Yeah, we do. Yes, you're absolutely right. Like, we're trying to do a lot. We're going to a lot of events. We're doing a lot of advertising, talking about it on all the social media platforms and podcasts like this, like really trying to get the word out. So people know that there's another solution. And in some of the schools, it's exactly that. Like, if you can work with the parents, they can help the schools like fund it.
that's fantastic. Is this
Yeah.
how expensive is the product?
It's retails for $450, and we do have discounts for schools
Nice.
and
Okay.
volume discounts.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. And I guess so you
Yeah.
said in a lot of Alabama, what is it like why is that a niche? Like what did you do? Who did you talk to that it was
It
like,
was like
"Hey."
this athletic trainer there is terrified, and he was like, "I need this in my kit. Every school needs this." And, like, it's just little niches like that, like, they're all over
Mhm.
parts of California, parts of but in that one in particular, he was like, "This is great. We need it everywhere."
That's
It
awesome.
was great. Yeah, it was great.
Easy
Mhm.
conversation. Yeah, man. How many do you want? Well, discount of course, but how many do you want? We want to get this in as many schools as possible.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm having some of those similar conversations with a lot of other sports teams and schools, and it's great. Like, for me, I really just want to be like, how many lives can be saved? Nobody needs to die from heat stroke is
Exactly.
kind of where I come from. Yeah,
Absolutely. Get that tattooed on your arm by the way. You've only said it
I
a
know,
couple times. You've only said it
totally.
a couple times. So
What would you do if I showed it to you? Yeah.
yeah, actually I had it right here the
Oh,
whole
it's
time.
already there.
Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
right. Oh, I wish you knew. So what is like so again, retails for 450. There is some sort of discount, so I understand that aspect of it. What actually goes into making this product, right? Don't give us the whole secret sauce, but like
Yeah.
how is it manufactured? How is it put together? What do you guys do different than your competition? How is this
Yeah.
such a unique product that, again, all of
I
these
will
people
say we have a patent. So
awesome.
that's great. But
Great.
interestingly, it used to be made overseas, and I spent last year or the early part of this year, like about 6 to 8 months moving manufacturing to the US. So now we're made in
Let's
America,
go.
made in Ohio. And um, it was so much work trying to gather all the pieces, put all the pieces together, find an incredible manufacturer that can help us, put it all together. So that probably took the most amount of work because the quality, the quality control has to be there. It's not like, oh, if it doesn't work,
Yeah.
somebody will die. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so we put a lot of time and effort into that, and I feel pretty good. Like having it made in America makes me feel great, and I can really be close to the
Yeah.
the whole process.
As you said, the quality control, obviously what you guys
Yeah,
were doing before, I'm sure it was working fine, but now, as you said, you're it's a little easier, a little closer to the process. You have like, just an extra eye on it, right? That must feel,
yeah,
because as you said,
yeah,
this isn't really a product that, 98% of the time it works.
yeah. It
Well,
has to
that's
work.
that's a
Yeah,
problem if it's only 98% of the time. It absolutely
yeah,
has to work. And
exactly.
so what I understand that aspect of it, right? Moving it over, that seemed like a
Mhm.
just a just a bore of a project. But from like how is the vest put together? What is the design? Why is it so much better than, the patent's great, I'm sure. Don't tell us about
Yeah,
it because I don't really understand
yeah.
patents,
No, it's
whatever.
okay.
But like what is it about the design of the product and everything that goes into it that makes it so like why does it work as well as it does?
It's, an endothermic reaction.
Oh, tell
There's,
us what that means.
yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I can show you
Yeah.
cold bath. So I know because on a podcast. So
Yeah.
for your listeners, it literally is a vest, but it's like a blanket that lays on top. And
If I can,
inside the vest are urea and ammonium chloride.
okay.
Sorry, you
No,
want to
no,
say
I was
something?
gonna say it looks exactly like that thing they put on your chest when you go to the dentist and they need to take pictures of your teeth.
Yeah.
That's
So
exactly what it looks
this is a demo model, so it
like. Okay.
actually is filled with chemicals.
Okay, okay, okay.
Um, and you add water to it through
Easy.
this. And as soon as the water hits the chemicals inside, it freezes. And it immediately freezes. Yeah. And so
Dang.
that's essentially it's a chemical reaction. But the best part is that it doesn't need any ice or any power, any electricity.
Yeah, it could be done when
Yeah.
there's no electricity, right? People lose power all the time,
Yeah.
and it's so hot out, so that totally makes sense. I love it, Tracy. This has been fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else for me? I think I asked all my questions. This was great.
I mean, this has been really great because I really appreciate covering sort of signs of heat stroke because
Yeah,
for us, like our mission is really making sure everybody understands the signs and has a tool to react when that happens.
yeah.
So that's really our mission.
It seems like
So
an
I
absolute.
appreciate all the
Of
questions.
course, no. It seems like an absolute no-brainer. Again, there is a price tag on this, but like it seems worth it.
You know what? It's the cost of a football helmet.
Exactly. Oh yeah, perfect. Oh wow, there you go. That's a perfect analogy. It's like, well, you're trying
It's
to
like
protect their
it's so
head. Yeah.
cool.
So from
Yeah.
that, I guess with that, like, is there a particular sport that you like to bring up most? Is it football? Is there another sport that you usually point to and say, hey, like statistically, do we know what sports have the highest potential, highest rate of heat stroke?
No, any sports that start practicing outside in August.
Okay. Yeah, I
And
guess that makes sense.
crazily enough, like I always think football, but so many of the deaths have been from other sports. Like there was a wrestler who died in Kentucky because they practiced outside. A lacrosse player who has damage for life from playing lacrosse and no access to an ice bath. So it spans all the sports. If you're outside and you're practicing, you're at risk. And
Hmm.
it's really hot, you're at risk.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, and it's always really hot in August. So yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Tracy, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate the awareness. I appreciate you explaining the product and what you guys are doing and how you're literally saving lives. That's always an easy yes for a podcast guest for me. I do love that. Can you give us the socials, give us the website, anywhere that
Yeah.
people can find a little more information about you if they want to go check it out?
Yep. Thank you. We're at coldvest.com or on Instagram at we are coldvest.
Love it. That is fantastic. I will
Yeah.
put that in the show notes for everybody in
Thank
case
you.
so they can just click on that. But Tracy, I appreciate your time. I appreciate the audience's time. Time's the only thing we don't get more of. So thank you guys all very much for yours. But other than that, hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.